Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call the October 26, 2021 regular board meeting of the Ottawa Catholic School Board to order. Sarah, can you read the land acknowledgement, please?
Yes. As we gather virtually today from all across the Ottawa region, we acknowledge that we and the Ottawa Catholic School Board are located on the traditional and ancestral territory of the Algonquin people. We recognize their long-standing relationship with this land, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home.
Thank you. Father Saunders, can you lead us in prayer, please?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Faithful God, your love for us surpasses all our hopes and desires. We thank you for your constant presence and goodness in our lives. We are grateful for our time together today, and we beg you to bless the work of our hands in the service of your children through the ministry of Catholic education. May we be wise stewards of the gift of Catholic education entrusted to us in this province. May all our efforts be guided by you, bring glory to your name, and find their completion in you. Bless each of us, so that we may be living signs of your love for all. And we ask you this through Christ our Lord. Amen. And please keep in your prayers the following people who have passed away recently. Thomas Drever, grandfather of Alison Kinahan, vice principal at Holy Trinity High School. Ronald Shepherd, father of Mary Donaghy, associate director of education, and grandfather of Katie Donaghy, OCSB teacher. Joseph Thomas Heenan, father of Christine Abraham, client support specialist in the Learning Technology Department, and grandfather of Emily Abraham, early childhood educator at St. John the Apostle School. Jacques Labonté, father of Anne-Veronique Labonté, teacher at St. Brother Andre School. Jixiu Su, sister-in-law of Jane Zhang, ESL instructor at St. Patrick's Adult School, and International Languages Site Administrator at St. Joseph's High School, Continuing and Community Education Department. And we also pray for our staff and students' extended family members, especially those who have lost their lives due to COVID-19. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let perpetual light shine upon them. May they rest in peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Father, can you read the feast days for November?
The
feast days?
I will. Yes, I'm just about to, Mark. The saint we are presenting tonight is Saint Elizabeth, the mother of John the Baptist, after whom both the school and the parish is named. In Hebrew, her name means "my God has sworn." And the only information that we have of her is the Gospel of Luke. She was the wife of Zechariah, who received a message from the angel Gabriel that his wife would bear a son, whom he was told to name John. When she realized that she was pregnant, she was filled with joy, because she was of old age, and she exclaimed, "The Lord has done this for me. In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people." For to be barren was a curse among the people of Israel. one of the roles of a woman was to produce offspring for the nation. Mary, the mother of Jesus, went to visit her when she was 6 months pregnant. And at the greeting of Mary, she said, "Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb," which forms the latter part of the present Hail Mary. And after Mary heard the blessing of Elizabeth, she spoke the words of the Magnificat, which is still a very important prayer in the church today. When after 8 days their son John was to be circumcised, Zechariah spoke the words of the Benedictus. "Blessed be the Lord God of Israel, for he has looked favorably on his people and redeemed them." Another prayer that is a favorite in the church. Today, Elizabeth is the patron saint of pregnant women, and her feast day is on November the 5th. Now, St. Elizabeth School prominently displays the statue of their patron saint in the school for all to be reminded of her assistance in their daily lives. The icon of St. Elizabeth is proudly displayed at the entrance of the main office, calling to mind her love and compassion, as well as her role in the salvation of the world. The signs and symbols of our faith present in our school allow for spontaneous experiences of prayer when we need a little extra support. The school community always celebrates the feast day of St. Elizabeth with a liturgy. Then classes watch the short video about her life. And afterwards, students either make flowers or draw pictures of flowers to create a bouquet for her. They are placed at the front entrance near her statue during the month of November. Hope and love are the main virtues they focus on. The emphasis of their annual canned food drive is helping those who need a little extra help by giving hope and love. Students know this honors St. Elizabeth as she provides hope and love by being the patron saint of pregnant women. Every year, during normal times, they have their annual Happy Birthday Baby Jesus celebration with a feast just before Christmas. This also calls to mind that Mary spent the first 3 months of her pregnancy with Elizabeth, and that Jesus and John the Baptist were cousins. The students also lived the spirit of gratitude that permeated the life of St. Elizabeth by intentionally expressing their thanks for those that make their life better through their acts of generosity and kindness. Then they, like St. Elizabeth, are encouraged to be that source of blessing for others through their acts of kindness. And like St. Elizabeth, who welcomed Mary in her home, St. Elizabeth Catholic School is a loving and welcoming community to all who enters their doors. So marvelous school. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. Please stand for roll call.
Be
Thank you. We have no delegations, no public session. Can I get a mover for approval of the agenda, please? Trustee Warren, Trustee Lawrence. That the agenda for the regular board meeting of October 26, 2021 be approved as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Welcome, Trustee Curry. Item F, school student departmental profile, memo from the Associate Director of Education, Distinguished Catholic Alumni Award winner 2021. Associate Director Donnie.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. It is my great honor to introduce to you today this year's Distinguished Catholic Alumni Award winner, Dr. Kim Carace. Dr. Carace, an accomplished psychologist, is the Vice President, Innovation and Transformation Leader at the Royal Ottawa Mental Health Centre, an Associate Professor of Psychiatry at the University of Ottawa, and the Presidential Officer of the Canadian Psychological Association. Dr. Kim is a worthy recipient of the 2021 Distinguished Catholic Alumni Award. On a personal level, Kim's energy and kindness as a student at St. Mark's High School helped her move many obstacles and create a vision and dream of someday contributing in a positive way in the field of mental health. On a professional level, Kim's CV is as impressive as it is long. While it is hard to summarize, her life's passion has been to build collaborative partnerships across sectors to impact policy and system change in substance use and abuse and mental health through clinical innovation and research. As a collaborative community member, she works with her colleagues to create novel models of treatment that have a far-reaching impact. Dr. Carace's truly transformational models of delivery of care are now being implemented at regional, national, and international levels, linking research and clinical practice. She is a well-sought-out authority across Canada as policy and decision makers attempt to replicate these models of care in their jurisdictions. Through her leadership roles in mental health and addiction settings, Kim's work has focused on filling gaps in care for patients who don't quite fit in the traditional models of care. Since obtaining her PhD in 2008, she has been a principal investigator or co-investigator on over $7 million worth of peer-reviewed funding in the areas of substance use and mental health. Dr. Kim Carace is a visionary leader in addiction and mental health. Her Catholic upbringing and education supported her to celebrate the dignity of all peoples, particularly those marginalized by addiction and mental health, to work tirelessly, creatively, and in a holistic way with her colleagues and community to create a supportive mental health framework to support all. Although I have not had the pleasure of meeting Kim in person due to our COVID restrictions, I did speak to her by phone, and within 2 minutes of our conversation, I could hear the passion, energy, and compassion in not only her words, but her voice. She is truly a champion in the field of addictions and mental health, and I am very proud to say that Dr. Kim Carace is a graduate of St. Mark High School, and it is no surprise to me that she will direct her award monies to St. Mark in the area of mental health. Now, Kim, I'm going to ask you to step forward if you can virtually and imagine that you are in a big conference center with 5,000 of our employees and our trustees all there at what we call Christian Community Day. And we like to always honor our distinguished alumni award winner at that PD Day. Unfortunately, we can't do that due to COVID restrictions, but I am very pleased to present this to you remotely. It's a beautiful glass structure here. I'm going to have to put the box behind it so you can see it a little bit. Otherwise, the light goes right through it. But it is my great honor to virtually present this to you. The Distinguished Catholic Alumni Award for 2021, Dr. Kimberly Carace. And it says, by the Ottawa Catholic School Board for achieving a high level of distinction and recognition in their field while exhibiting positive Catholic values. And I can't think of a more worthy recipient. Everyone will be subject to or will get to view our beautiful video that will be released, I believe, tomorrow. And Dr. Kim, I turn it over to you. Congratulations. We'd be happy to hear a few words.
Thank you. That was very, very touching. Thank you, Mary. And I had such a such a delightful conversation with you, and I actually can't wait to get to meet you in person. I've asked to say a few words, if that's okay. Can I still do that? Okay, excellent. I just want to make sure it's good on your agenda. So first of all, I'm so honored. I'm so humbled. I was actually very touched by the words that you said about me, and thanks to the committee and the selection committee. Also, I mean, we all know this, people who have had their journey in lives, we don't get to these points by ourselves. We get here because of the many, many people who stand beside us, who sometimes have to help push us, and who sometimes have to help lead the way so that we can get where we need to be. So I want to thank you. I'm so delighted that many of these people are in the room here today. We get here through our families, and my mom is actually on the call today, still a member of your school board. So delighted that she's here with me. So our family, our friends, our community, and of course our teachers. And to that, all of us have had numerous mentors and coaches and teachers who have supported us and guided us and been a light to us maybe at times when it wasn't quite clear if we knew where we were going, or it wasn't quite clear that the path was going to be as easy as we thought. And I have to say, I'm so lucky that person is here in the audience today. So thank you, Mrs. Mertz. And a huge shout out for what you did for me and what you did for so many other students. I've watched that, and your guidance and your wisdom and your compassion and your caring. And I also know that your daughter is here sitting next to you, and thank you for the nomination, and the other Mrs. Mertz. And exactly. And I know, and I've seen firsthand that the apple certainly doesn't fall from the tree there. So thank you, and thank you for that nomination. As Mary had mentioned, when I was young, many of us weren't sure what we were going to do. And, people were going to have pretty lofty ideas. People wanted to be firefighters. People wanted to be astronauts. People wanted to be superstars. People had all sorts of ideas of what they wanted to do. I was pretty certain what I wanted to do. And what I really wanted to do is help care for those people who really couldn't find ways to care for themselves, who didn't have a path that was clear on how to get there, to find new ways for those cases where it felt, or for those people where it felt maybe there weren't opportunities to get better. Maybe their road to recovery would be pretty hard. And I'm really delighted that I've got to this place, maybe, I don't want to say, but 30 years later. And I can stand here today to say, that's what I get to do every day in my job. I get to work beside amazing people in our communities, my colleagues, other health professionals, and young people to create a system that hopefully is better than the system that it was last year, or the year before, or the year before that. When I was young, people didn't talk so much about mental health problems. You rarely heard anyone say a word about it at all. It was something you kept to yourself, almost like a dirty little secret that certainly you wouldn't want parents and families and other people to know about. And yet, I was there at school, and I'm sure you saw it, those of you who've been in education for long enough, but people didn't speak about it. And I watched folks who were too afraid to say, I don't think I'm okay. Or families to say, I don't think we're doing okay. And not really sure where to go, and not really sure if there was a place for them that would be helpful, and not really sure if that they were going to be okay. So I'm delighted we've gotten to a point in our world where what are you doing here today? You're honoring mental health. You're talking about mental health with the kids in your school, with your teachers, with your parishioners, or whoever else that you're bringing to that table to have that discussion. Because when you can start having those discussions, when you're in schools, and when you're in your communities and people can know it's okay not to be okay, that's when we open the door for people to start to be able to find hope. And what I've learned in my journey to get here, with my own obstacles that I've had to overcome, or the many other people that I've tried to help along the way, is we are far, far, far more resilient than we ever thought we would be. We have far more courage. And as a community, together, we can do far more than we can ever do by ourselves. So I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. But what I do want to say is that I hope that I can continue to contribute to this community that made me who I am today. And that I can do that in part by directing the funds associated with this very, very honorable award to St. Mark to support mental health. so that those conversations can continue to happen, so we can raise kids to awareness, to raise kids compassion for each other, and frankly, compassion for themselves. So thanks to all of you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today, and I look forward to crossing paths in ways over the next year. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Caress, and congratulations on your award. And just listening to the passion in your voice about what you work with every day, you're obviously a deserving recipient. So congratulations. I'll ask the trustees if they have any questions. If anybody has any questions. Trustee Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Dr. Caress. Congratulations. It's great that your accomplishments. I was in the introduction. Associate Director Donaghy said that your model of care had become had spread across Canada. I was just wondering, without getting into the weeds too much or just making it simple, what has been so revolutionary or different about the model of care that you've developed that has allowed these advances?
Absolutely. I'll stick to some higher level, just in terms of maybe what people are familiar with. So as mentioned in the intro, my work tries to bridge that gap between mental health and substance use. Unfortunately, traditionally in the systems of care, mental health and substance use system were actually treated quite separately, such that if you had a substance use problem, you weren't really accepted for care within a mental health agency, and vice versa. If you had a mental health problem, it was very challenging to get care for your substance use problems. So a lot of the model care that I developed actually fostered to integrate the mental health and addiction realms, so that people are treated in an integrated way. We know the vast majority of people with substance use problems have mental health problems, and vice versa. The vast number of people with mental health problems also may struggle with substance use problems. But could you imagine a system where if you had both, that you can't get served, even though that's the norm rather than the exception? So the models that I work with are community and hospital partnerships and interdisciplinary teams who work together to treat people in an integrated fashion when they weren't able to get help before. More recently, one of the ways that we're doing that is by scaling and spreading some virtual care interventions. As you know, with COVID right now, it's even harder for people to get help in person, right? And we've actually developed some new technologies and innovations so that people can actually walk in to care virtually to get help on the spot, versus previous walk-in models of care. And those are actually being spread now across the province and more broadly, because they've been able to increase same-day access to care for people who have substance use and mental health problems. So that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, thank you for being so concise and explaining it so well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curry.
Is there any other questions? Trustee Curry?
Well, quick one to Dr. Caress. What would your best piece of advice be to any student now at St. Mark or any of our high schools or any of our schools to how they could hope to make a difference in the world like you have?
Oh, that is a big question. How to help make a difference. So it's really interesting. When 25 years ago, when I started this, I thought the professionals had all the answers. And now 25 to 30 years later, I realize our young people have most of the answers. So, and how inspiring they are to what they can do and what they can create. So the first thing that I would say is, what I've seen during COVID with the young people that I get an opportunity to work with every day is how they've come together to support each other in times when they feel isolated. When and you don't recognize, Mr. Curry, potentially we may not recognize how even those small things that people do to reach out, to lend a hand, to be there, to not let somebody be alone when they feel alone, to open doors for folks, to make people feel part of something, that makes a difference. You don't have to do something huge and fancy and system transformational to change people's lives in the day-to-day. It's sometimes some of those smallest things that young people do for other young people, that our teachers do for each other or for their students, or that we do within our communities. So to your question, I think there's a range of opportunities for young people to make a difference. It's a matter of them to how do they work together to do that. If it's in mental health, how do they advocate in a way that would maybe shine a light on the issue for them, to provide supports either within their schools, and to take that journey outside of the school as well. What can they do with our larger community? What can they do within their other sports, or within their families, or whatever? So I actually think it really starts small, and it's the mindset of leading and doing with purpose that I think we can teach our young people. Because then it really doesn't matter what the fancy technology you make and do is. What matters is the purpose that you bring to the table and lead with.
Well, thank you very much for that wonderful advice. Thank you.
Mrs. Donahue, do you have any closing comments?
Mr. Chair, thank you for that opportunity, but I really think Dr. Curries has said anything. I couldn't top that. So we're just so proud of her as a graduate and such a recipient. So thank you.
Yes, she will do us proud. Again, Dr. Curries, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, congratulations.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. I wish I could give people hugs, but I can't.
Thank you. Moving on with the agenda, item G, declarations of conflict of interest. I understand that Trustee Coburn and Trustee Simpson have a conflict on item K1, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Item H, confirmation of the minutes of the regular board meeting, October 12th, 2021. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Moore and Trustee Whitted. That the minutes of the regular board meeting of October 12th, 2021 be adopted as presented. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. There's no unfinished business from previous meetings. There's no trustee motions. Presentation and consideration of committee reports. Committee of the Whole Board, October 26, 2021. Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. One item to report out in the public session. It's a memo from the Superintendents of Student Success, Elementary, Finance, and Administration. It was moved by Trustee McEwen and seconded by Trustee Warren that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Elementary Student Success and the Superintendent of Finance and Administration dated October 18th, 2021, entitled Confidential Child Care Review Update be received, and that the board gives direction to staff to create a service level agreement with the Ottawa Catholic Child Care Corporation.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 2, memo from the Director of Education, parent involvement committee minutes of May 11, 2021. Mr. Director.
For receipt, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Moore and Trustee Lawrence. That the memorandum from the Director of Education dated October 21st, 2021, and the report entitled Parent Involvement Committee Minutes of May 11, 2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3, memo from the Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services, SEAC meeting minutes of June 16, 2021.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. These minutes are for receipt as well.
Thank you. Can I have a mover, please? Trustee Curry and Trustee Moore. Sorry, and welcome, Superintendent Benton.
Thank you.
Moved by Trustee Curry and Trustee Moore that the memorandum from the Superintendent of Special Education and Student Services dated October 19, 2021, entitled Special Education Advisory Committee meeting minutes of June 16, 2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item L1, presentation and consideration of staff trustee reports. Memo from the Superintendent of Continuing and Community Education, re St. Josephine Virtual High School 2021. Welcome, Superintendent Bellotti, Mr. Nash, and Mr. Newens. Welcome.
So good evening, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to be here this evening with Mr. Nash, who's the principal of St. Josephine Virtual High School, and Mr. Newens, who is department head with St. Josephine. The creation of St. Josephine has been a venture which has been made possible by the support of the Board of Trustees, as well as the commitment and dedication from its staff. This evening, we'll be sharing some of the highlights and challenges which we have encountered over the past few months, as well as some of the creative thinking and innovation which has taken place. I will ask Principal Nash to begin with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to your meeting this evening. Myself and Mr. Newens are going to be giving you a presentation, and of course, there will be an opportunity for questions at the end. My name is David Nash, and I am the principal of St. Josephine Virtual Academy. St. Josephine is our brand new virtual high school this year for grades 7 to 12 in the OCSB. Just to give you a little bit of context, last year I was the acting principal of the Virtual Academy. And the Virtual Academy was the online virtual schooling that OCSB did in response to COVID. So this year I became the principal of St. Josephine, which is in fact a full school. You'll see on my title page there that I have a person flying a plane, and you will see that he has one wing in his left hand as he's flying the plane. Last year, we often said that we are building the plane as we're flying it. And we hit a lot of turbulence last year. And I think it's safe to say that by the end of the year, we had the wings on the plane and we had the engine in it. And this year, we're continuing to build the plane, but we are certainly refining it and adding a lot more features to it so that we can fly with a lot less turbulence. And I think that over the course of the presentation, you'll see that we've put a lot of things in place that have created more of a carefree flight. We are in the middle of branding our school, and we're working closely with communications. And we sent out a survey to our parent community, to our staff, and to all of our students, all 1,100 of them. And one of the first questions that we asked them was, what are 5 words that you would use to describe St. Josephine? And we took those 5 words and we put it together in a Wordle. And when you do a Wordle, the word that has the most frequency is the largest, and the least frequency is the smallest. So you can see there that the word that's clearly the largest is welcoming and fun. And I think that when we're characterizing our school, when you hear the word welcoming, certainly you're thinking of an inclusive environment for learning. Here I tried to pick an image of an actual bricks and mortar school, and I juxtaposed it against a computer. And I guess what I'm trying to share with you here is that we are the same as any other bricks and mortar school, but we are different because our delivery model is a virtual learning platform. So here we're speaking to the diversity of our program. We have 1,100 students from all across the city, from Stittsville to Orleans. We have a curriculum that ranges from French immersion to core. We run co-op programs. We have an achievement center. We have dual credit with Algonquin College. The staff of St. Josephine Virtual High School is approximately 94 staff members. We have office assistants, we have department heads, we have curriculum leaders. We have Father Pierre Champoux, who is the Director of Vocations with the Archdiocese of Ottawa, Cornwall, who is our priest. And we work very closely with Father Gerard Monahan with OCSB and all of the chaplains in our board to help create our faith programming, both for our adults and our staff. A lot of our chaplains are involved in different things with St. Josephine. I've got chaplains right now planning a retreat, and I've got other chaplains in the system planning Advent liturgies for me and so forth. We're an inclusive model, and I can certainly speak to that later on. We have resource and we have student success teachers. We run co-op programs both in person and virtually. We have lots of extracurricular. Our mascot is the St. Josephine Dragons. We run a full school day, 300 minutes of synchronous instruction from 8:45 in the morning to 2:55 in the afternoon. When I spoke about flying the plane as we are building it, I'm talking here about the challenges of creating a virtual high school and some of the turbulence that comes with it. But with these challenges, it creates new opportunities for learning and doing things differently. And here I just took a small, very small sample, and I put in each of the circles different things that we had to deal with over the course of this year, and different ways that we went about rethinking it and doing it differently. One thing that I'd like to speak of is inclusion. Because when you think of the 6 C's in a virtual learning environment and you think of the hidden curriculum and how we're engaging kids that way, you think, how are you doing it virtually? And here I could speak to our community club center. Here I can speak to our Muslim girls group that we run after school. Here I can speak to the golf teams that we have representing us at our city meets and our cross country. I can also speak to our student council that's involved in a Spirit Week right now at this time. Our next slides are going to deal with deep learning, and we're going to look at the 4 tenets of deep learning. And I'm going to speak quickly to the environment, and then I'm going to give the floor to Tristan. So when we speak about our different environment, we can look at both the staff and the students. Our staff spend 50% of their time in the workplace, that's an OCSB workplace, and 50% of the time at their home. You can see at the home, they've created some dynamic learning environments. You can see the pictures on the right. And then at the left, you can see some of the workspaces that we've created at our 4 different hubs. And all of these hubs are located across the city at St. Nicholas Central, St. Matthew in the East End, St. Pius Central, and Canada in the West End. Again, we've created collaborative relationships with all of the principals at all of these hubs. And now I'm going to have Tristan speak. So thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and trustees, and thanks for having us tonight. We've been building lots of learning partnerships at St. Josephine. The virtual chapel website was set up last year, and Father Pierre will be starting his classroom visits in the near future. There's also a real sense of connection and community when our entire school comes together each morning to pray together as a class and to go through the live announcements document. It's really quite something to see hundreds of teachers and students, all of their cursors clicking on the links, all active in the same document together at the same time. And we sure do have a lot going on at the school so far, like Dave said. After school clubs, lunchtime extracurriculars. It's like a virtual drop-in community center. School council, the student council has already planned lots of events like Spirit Weeks, contests. And in fact, our athletic department ran a school-wide vote to determine the new mascot. So each day, hundreds of students got to have their say in choosing our new official mascot. So go St. Josephine Dragons. We also engage in learning partnerships with members of the community from outside the classroom, inviting virtual guest speakers to join us in a Google Meet. Here you can see science teacher Andrew Kwai took his physics students on a virtual field trip to the Ottawa Makermobile. And we had Adam Hassan from the Canadian Cancer Society come to speak with a business leadership class, who also had the opportunity to tune in live to a business event run by Shopify. And on to deep learning. In terms of effective teaching, you'll be glad to hear that there's no more synchronous versus asynchronous, and it's all just regular, live, real, engaging learning. As we go through the year, teachers have been using all kinds of pedagogical practices that help students build capacity in their learning. For example, using features on Google Meet, such as breakout rooms. You can meet one-on-one with students, put them into small groups to work together collaboratively, assigning tasks that put students in the role of creator rather than just test taker. Teachers are using a wide variety of digital learning tools such as Jamboard, Edpuzzle, Flipgrid, to meet the students where they are and help them move forward in their learning. The learning management system that all classes use, Hapara Workspace, is now quite familiar to students and teachers alike. And lastly, an important focus for teachers has been on building relationships with our students, which is made easier by being on a semester timetable, as there's a lot more time from September to January to really get to know our students. And of course, leveraging digital is a must in a virtual school. We've had some good support from our LT department with Tara Potter as our school's learning technology consultant. Students use a BYOD approach, bring your own device, which really does mean a variety of devices. But whether a student is on their desktop, a Chromebook, or a laptop, they'll still have access to the same digital tools, especially by using the Google Chrome web browser, which is free. We are working hard to create a safe online environment that imitates what it's like in the bricks and mortar schools by using Hapara highlights, as well as Hapara filters, which is a firewall that blocks unsavory websites. And we've got all kinds of digital tools to manage school activities. We've got Sora for our virtual library, where staff and students can borrow ebooks. We're learning to use Laserfish for tracking student records. Parents have access to the parent portal, which makes it easy to view and sign their child's IEPs and report cards. And a new website, mystudentinfo.ca, has been very helpful in distributing student schedules, sending home letters of concern, tracking volunteer hours and guidance counselor appointments, and it can even act as a digital student ID card. We would like to thank you so much for your time, and to find out more about what's happening at St. Josephine, please consider following us on Twitter and viewing our website. And we appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions or comments? Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Nash or Mr. Nguyen, I was wondering, have there been or are there any special challenges to the delivery of special education resources to the students? Does the virtual format present any challenges that you've been able to overcome, or that you're working to overcome, or has it flowed pretty well?
I can answer that, and thank you for that question. Mr. Chair, I would say one of the challenges that Mr. Nguyen spoke of is a logistical one, and that is the distribution of the IEP. So just last week, we problem solved that with the software company Cardinal that does the IEP software, and we now have digital signatures, and the next step coming in the not too distant future is going to be for the parent or guardian to sign it back. So that there's that exchange of digital signatures on the IEP. I have a full resource team for my 7-8 panel and my 9-12 panel to meet the needs of all of my students with IEPs. I meet with them regularly, and I also have a department head of student services. We make sure that we follow an inclusive model and that the resource teachers are in the classrooms helping the students. Just today, I did a virtual meet with one of my 7-8 resource teachers and a parent, and her concern was an organizational structure for her student in the virtual environment. So we work collaboratively with the parent and the resource teacher to create and put some steps in place for that student. And I felt that at the end of that meeting, it went very, very well. There's going to be challenges because not every student is created the same, and we are going to roll with it. But so far, so good. And thank you very much for your question.
Thank you.
Trustee Moore, then Trustee Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Principal Nash and Mr. Nguyen. My question's about disengagement. So we've just come through the worst part of the pandemic, and a lot of the students were a little disengaged last year when they got signed back up for virtual again. How do you work with that? Because the one-on-one is difficult when they won't put their camera on. When they so what are some of the techniques you use?
Maybe I can answer the first part of that, and then certainly Mr. Nguyen's, if you have some more to add, by all means. I think that Mr. Chair, at the very beginning of the year, we had a lot of students that signed up for virtual schooling and then realized that they had changed their mind. We tried to create an environment that allowed them to do so, and we created timelines in the early part of the fall with care and compassion, because we recognized that parents made a decision last year in February, and then their kids got double vaccinated over the summer, and we wanted to respect the fact that they could in fact leave. So we created a collaborative process for cross boundaries to and from virtual. So I like to think that the number of students that we have now in our 7 to 12 virtual schooling, which numbers in fact 1,100, are in fact kids that are not there in response to COVID, but are kids that are there because they want to be there, because this is the best way for them to learn, and they fully support it. That being said, there's challenges. There's challenges with the camera. We created a camera policy this year where we said your camera must remain on at all times unless specified by the teacher. Of course, you're going to have individual circumstances, and you're going to have individual conversations with some parents for their kids, because there's always going to be exceptions to the rule. But I think it's important to have a baseline level of policy with that regard for the cameras. Mr. Nguyen, did you want to jump in at all?
Yeah, just to add that through you, Mr. Chair, we, as teachers, we really take a team approach, and we try and involve as many people as we can, the vice principal, guidance counselors, student services, resource teachers if we can, but most importantly, the parent. Trying to catch things early on and make the interventions necessary, but picking up phone call and like having phone calls with the parent and working with them to try and reach the students who maybe are a bit disengaged with certain classes.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Simpson.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Moore actually did steal my question, but I will, add on to that question. First of all, I'm very happy to hear that there is a camera policy, because I do feel that it is important that we are engaging kids through building relationships with them and building a relationship with them face to face. My next question would be, what efforts are you making to do the same for your staff? For staff to get face-to-face time so that they can collaborate. I mean, this is a new horizon for them also. And I understand that they, which I didn't realize before, that they were spending 50% of their time in a bricks and mortar building and 50% of their time online. So what have you done as an admin team to build those relationships and opportunities for collaboration with your staff?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. Mr. Chair, we are moving all of our staff into the hubs within the next 2 weeks. We've given the staff the opportunity to choose the hub that is closest proximity to their home. So we're not asking a staff member to travel across the city from the east end to the west end or vice versa. I think that right away is a good indicator that we care for their wellness and we respect it. And every staff member that asked for their choice got their first choice, no questions asked. We made it work for them. I can say that there are a significant number of staff that work in the West End, and I can also say that there is a scarcity of space at All Saints, but we are working collaboratively with Mr. LaRose, the principal at All Saints, to make sure that everyone has a space. I can also say that with respect to wellness and working at the hub, we have put teachers in the same panels together, intermediate teachers we've clustered together, high school teachers we've clustered together. We've clustered English teachers together in the same room, French teachers together in the same room. At the hubs, we've created a staff room. We've put in a microwave, all these different little things that I think are important over the course of a day. We've bought sit-stand desks for our teachers at the different hubs, because we respect the fact that sitting in front of a computer all day in a virtual environment is difficult for a teacher, just as it is for a student. We've bought standing mats for our teachers so that when they're standing, they're cushioned. We've also had lots of conversations with Dr. Richard Balduc, our mental health lead, about staff wellness for our staff, and we're looking we did a workshop with him initially at the very beginning of the year. We had our 2 addictions counselors participate, as well as our psychologist and our social worker assigned to our school. But following that, we had another conversation with Dr. Balduc just to make sure that we were taking care of our staff's needs. It's difficult, I'm not going to lie, but we are trying to do our best.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you for your time today, Mr. Chair.
Can I have a mover, please, for the motion? Trustee Simpson and Trustee Curry. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Continuing and Community Education dated October 20th, 2021, entitled St. Josephine Virtual High School 2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 2, memo from the Superintendent of Continuing Community Education, international student recruitment. Welcome back, Superintendent Velati, Ms. Leon, and Ms. Madamas Lopez. Welcome.
So good evening, Mr. Chair. It's a pleasure to provide an update with our international student program this evening. And as you mentioned, joining us is our manager, Jennifer Leon, and one of our international students from Mexico, Sarah Madamas Lopez. And this evening, you will hear about how we're promoting our program, as well as firsthand how Sarah has been impacted and her academic journey has been impacted by joining the Ottawa Catholic School Board. So I'll pass it over to Ms. Perla Leon. Sorry, Jenny, I think you're muted.
I am. I keep forgetting that. Sorry. So good evening, everyone, and good evening, Mr. Chair and trustees, and thank you for having me here today. Today, I'm going to be presenting about our international student program and what we've done throughout the year and COVID as well. That we have great news for you today. Next slide, please. So today I will be updating you all on the progress we have made internationally and diversifying our international student program. And one of the things I'm very happy to announce today is that we have exponential growth in our international student program and as well in diversity as well. In this chart, you will see where we started in our international student with OCSB in the year of 2018-2019 and where we are today. Currently, we have students from 45 countries. That's a very exponential growth, and it's a very success as well because OCSB is branding themselves worldwide and attracting students from worldwide as well. Next slide, please. OCSB has become a place where the world meets and where students want to come and where students feel welcome. We have students from over 45 countries. That is very successful. It makes a very diversified international program. It allows our domestic students as well to interact with students from around the world and make friends with students from around the world. It creates a better environment for both our Canadian students and our international students as well. Next slide, please. So one of the most important things we have done to increase diversity is we worked on our branding. In our branding, we created a brand new video. It's a 2-minute video that describes the uniqueness of the OCSB. We've also worked very closely on improving our websites. We created a brand new website and we launched this summer of June 2021. We've also created student testimonials, and we're also working on creating more student testimonials in English and different languages as well. By the end of the year, we're hoping to have over 14 student testimonials in English and in 14 different languages as well. One of the things we highlight right now in our marketing is we're able to highlight what makes OCSB unique. We're able to highlight our beautiful city of Ottawa, our academic excellence, our faith-based learning and values, and how our supportive communities are students' pathway to success. Next slide, please. And in order to enrich the learning experience, not just inside of the classroom, but outside of as well, we have worked with our teachers, principals, guidance counselors, and many of our current international students on making our new students feel welcome. We were invited by the Red Blacks football team as well, where 89 international students attended a football game. We also created a OCSB virtual game night where there were 150 students attending in the virtual game night. And at the same time, through social media, we're communicating with our students. We have contests going on a monthly basis. And at the same time, we're able to update our students with what is happening, not just in the OCSB, but also outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. And part of the international experience and working together with our guidance counselors and principals, we did a welcoming to international students. Part of the OCSB team is where we planned orientation days in each of the high schools. Principals and guidance counselors and teachers were invited to have coffee and donuts with our students, where students were able to share their experience on how they felt when they arrived to Canada, what was different, also to talk a little bit about their culture and their experience back home. And this is what creates a community. This is what creates a safe environment for our students. And because of our principals being so supportive and as well involved with our international students feel like home and they feel safe. Next slide, please. And part of our branding, not only did we have coffee and donuts and pizza with our international students, but also we were able to give a welcoming swag bag to all of our international students, where it consists of one of our international t-shirts. We have three different designs. The first one is more touristic, and it shows the heart of Ottawa, being the Parliament, being OCSB, and the Ottawa map. The second t-shirt is more of a faith-based type of t-shirt that shows faith, love, and OCSB. That's what creates OCSB, and that's what we preach as well. Our values, our faith is what makes us very unique internationally. And the third one is a shirt that shows where our students are from. We have students from 45 countries, and we feel very proud of that. And then we have stress balls to help them during exams, notebooks, pens, water, and we also have our international mascot. And with us here today, we also have our international student ambassador, Sarah Matadamas Lopez from Mexico, who will be sharing with you her experience about OCSB, and she's been here with us for 5 years already. Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Perla Leon. I'm Sarah Matadamas Lopez. When I first got to Canada, I went into grade 7 at St. Peter Catholic High School. At first, it was not easy for me since I only knew a bit of English, and it was difficult to communicate with my teachers and classmates. However, my teachers helped me a lot to perfect my English, and the community and the teachers were very welcoming, and they helped me improving my communication skills. Thanks to them, I felt like I was in a safe environment where I could express my opinions and could express myself better over time. I was able to meet people from different countries and different backgrounds. I relate to them since I was also in their position because I was able to help them and make them feel welcome and safe too. There are a lot of things that I like about Ottawa, like the outdoor activities, going to restaurants, shopping, to the other malls, and like it's one of the safest places I've been in. I have also enjoyed strolling downtown and exploring places like historical monuments and museums. What I've learned about being a student in the Ottawa Catholic School Board is that I've learned to be inclusive and respectful with all of our students and staff. Some of the advice that I would give international students would be to not be afraid to leave your comfort zone, and this is an unforgettable experience. You're not alone, and there are many people who will find this really important in their life, as this is a new chapter in their lives where they will get the opportunity to have a better education and to learn a different language. And as a fun fact, I came to Canada in 2016 to study for the first time away from my parents.
So, Mr. Chair, as you can see, we have quite a comprehensive program on the go. I don't want to, put Sarah on the spot, but Sarah, maybe you can tell them the name of your WhatsApp group that you've created for the international students. the ones that are currently here, the ones that have left us, but also ones that would be arriving. So what's the name of the WhatsApp group you've created again?
The name of our WhatsApp group is International Swag, which is basically a lot of people around the world, especially from Latin America and Spain, and a person from Germany, and hopefully someone from Italy and Denmark.
Great. Thank you very much, Sarah. And thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and certainly welcoming any feedback or questions you may have.
You're on mute, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, I'll repeat what I just said. Any questions from the trustees? Trustee Moore, then Trustee McEwen.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Sarah, I have a question for you. Many of us, our families came to Canada back when you couldn't go home. It was a one-way trip. That was it. So how do you find in the 21st century, do you really feel like you've left home, that you can, because you can talk to your parents and see them a lot, I assume?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I call my parents every night. They're actually watching this stream right now.
Hello.
After the pandemic, before the pandemic, sorry, I used to visit them every summer, and I would travel all the way to Mexico to visit all my family. But long time ago, like my grandma and another part of my family came to Canada so they could live here and have a better quality of life. So I'm able to interact with them, and because they're part of my family, I feel really welcomed. So yeah.
I'm glad to hear that, Sarah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Superintendent Valley. Any challenges this year with COVID, getting students here?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So this year, I would say, was a little bit smoother than what the 2020-21 school year would have been, primarily because last year, as you recall, we had to go through the entire quarantine plan, which was approved by the Board of Trustees. And so last year, we had most of our students already in Ottawa, and we had a few that did have to go through the quarantine process. By the time this year came around, some of the restrictions had changed. They had lightened, especially with some of our high school students that were now double vaccinated. So that facilitated the process. I would say probably the greater challenge this year would be ensuring that we had enough locations for our students to reside. We did have some growth in this area in terms of international students. So we do work with Muskoka Learning International for providing our homestay. They're an excellent group to work with, but as you can appreciate, it's just ensuring that we're trying to have families have the right fit with some of our students within the school district that they're currently in. So I would say those were some of the challenges that we had this year, working through them. But our growth is in a rate that we're learning the lessons as we go, and we're improving and tweaking things as we go.
Thank you. Trustee Simpson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Superintendent Vladi and Sarah. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you on the program. It's a very impressive presentation and very exciting that we have such a diverse group of students coming to our board. And on that note, Sarah, if you were to give someone one piece of advice who was thinking of coming to our school board next year as an international student, what would that piece of advice be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would say that one piece of advice that I would give is to not let an important experience go just like that, because it's something that would mark your life. For me, it has marked my life a lot because I didn't know a word of English, as I said, and learning a new language really helps me communicate with other people and helps me maybe travel to other places. So I would recommend them to not be afraid to come, because they're going to feel welcome and safe, since there's going to be a lot of people that would be able to relate to them.
Trustee Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Superintendent Vladi or perhaps Ms. Perda Leon. Can you explain to me what is the difference, or between an exchange program and this international student program? And is there coordination between the two, or how does that work? Or is our exchange programs totally separate from this?
So through you, Mr. Chair, essentially the majority, there are different forms of exchange programs. The majority is when a student from, say, for example, the Ottawa Catholic School Board hosts a student from another country. And then there is the exchange where the OCSB student would then return and spend perhaps another semester somewhere else. So it could be a student from Italy coming to Ottawa, and then our student going to Italy and residing with them. We have had that in the past. That's typically done with an organization outside of us. We've worked to allow that for students to have that opportunity. The International Student Program is a student coming to the OCSB for whichever duration of time they choose, but they're doing their studies with us. There isn't a reciprocal exchange, if you will. So they're coming to the Ottawa Catholic School Board, attending our schools, receiving an outstanding education, but also in our faith-based environment. And then many of them stay not just 1 year, but often 2 or 3 years. And some stay in the city to go to university as well.
And I understand an exchange program is usually for 3 months or 4 months. It's not for a whole school year.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. There's usually a 3 or 4 month period of time.
Okay, thank you. May I ask one more question, Mr. Chair, to Sarah?
Go ahead.
Sarah, in fact, what brought up my previous question was that I ran into an exchange student at a community event on the weekend, and he was from Spain here at Sacred Heart for 3 months or till December. In any case, and he told me some interesting things which I just sort of assumed were worldwide, but they're not. And he had never experienced Thanksgiving and had never experienced Halloween. And in fact, I met him at a yard sale, and he had never experienced a yard sale. And I was just wondering, Sarah, are there things that in your experience here in Canada that you've experienced similar things that you don't have in Mexico that are here, and vice versa?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, I've experienced many events that happen here and not in Mexico. Some of them are Thanksgiving and Halloween. Instead of doing Halloween, we do Dia de Muertos, or Day of the Dead, where we celebrate the death and our relatives that passed away. We've sort of have a yard sale, but we don't call it a yard sale. I don't know what is the translation, but it's similar to it.
Okay, thank you.
I thought one of the items may be, yes, it really does get that cold in Ottawa in the winter. Sarah, thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, heartfelt. And we'll carry on with the meeting. Sorry, thank you, Jenny, as well. So can I have a mover for the report, please? Trustee Lawrence and Trustee Wooded. That the memorandum of the Superintendent of Continuing and Community Education dated October 19th, 2021, entitled International Student Recruitment be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 3, memo from the Superintendent of Learning Technologies, re Cyber Protection Update. Welcome, Superintendent Edwards and Mr. Liu.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to accept the invitation from the Board of Trustees to present to you a generalized overview of our cybersecurity posture at the OCSB. With me is Francis Liu, our Manager of Infrastructure and Enterprise Solutions. I want to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Liu for his leadership involving what we call in LT the back end. Francis is well known throughout the province, and it is very common that other school boards, business and tech companies, and the Ministry of Education will seek Francis's guidance. Our presentation will show that we are in a strong position to address security and privacy risks. It is not understated to say that Francis deserves the lion's share of the credit. In the most recent regional audit, our board and most regional boards identified cybersecurity as one of the most concerning threats. While this does not mean that we are in a precarious position, it does mean that the threats of ransomware, denial of service attacks, and phishing attacks require ongoing vigilance and a constant need to evaluate and update our practices. I would suggest to you, Mr. Chair, that should we be asked 5 years from now about our greatest risks, we would likely again pinpoint cybersecurity. The risks to loss of data, of business continuity, and the possibility that our systems could be shut down for ransom are real. A simple Google News search will identify that many Ontario school boards have been hit with ransomware and other forms of malware. The education sector is a popular target as there is a perception that school boards don't have the necessary funding, tech infrastructure, and expertise to protect their data and their assets. When considering our cybersecurity posture, we keep in mind these 3 elements. These include human behaviors, protection of our hard and soft assets, as well as ongoing vigilance to keep on top of and ahead of current and ongoing threats. We use the NIST framework. While each of the elements bears its own value as a presentation, our hope is that you glean from this an understanding that we have a structure that begins with the proactive identification and blocking of threats through to the worst case scenario of dealing with an actual attack and data recovery. Business continuity is also a major focus for us. The Ministry of Education graphic on the slide is useful in adding slightly more detail to understand our structures. At the bottom, you will note the NIST framework. Level 1 involves our own board-based security features. One example among many is that we have made it a priority to ensure that we store our data externally with our application providers. This is what people mean when they say that the data or the application is in the cloud or cloud hosted. That way, we harness the power of our vendors' cybersecurity to protect our assets. The idea is that companies like PowerSchool, Microsoft, and Google have much greater human and financial resources to protect against cyber threats. Much like a bank keeps dual and independent servers, we do, however, keep local backup copies of our data as part of our recovery plan. The second tier is boxed in red because the ministry still has in development a 24/7 shared service plan. This underscores the importance of cybersecurity as a ubiquitous concern and also recognizes that smaller boards can't possibly be expected to have the resources to protect against significant threats all by themselves. The third tier involves shared service providers who we may call to help us deal with a threat. I'll discuss these briefly in the next slide. As Francis would humbly attest, it is not just him, our team is vast. Locally, we have several committees and staff who are constantly seeking improvement in our structures and behaviors. And yes, Mr. Chair, your team of trustees plays an instrumental part to play in allowing for governance to set policy and allow for funding that protects everyone from individual users through to the board as a whole. Our board team also integrates with our external partners. I would highlight ECNO as an example of a shared service provider who, amongst other things, vets our software applications for security and privacy compliance. OASBO meets regularly to share best practices, and we also pay into OSB for insurance to support us should the worst case happen and we are into a costly ransomware situation. Our major partners, such as Microsoft, are once again key as they have the resources to monitor threats and update their security profiles. Yes, those annoying security patch pop-ups are important, and yes, you should continue to keep your devices updated. But what if we do everything right and we are attacked? Once again, this could be a presentation on its own. Suffice it to say that we would engage this structure and we would enlist the support of all our resources, both inboard and external, to deal with the attack. We are well supported with our board insurance, OSB, which is in turn well connected with the necessary ministry and industry partners. I would close by the reassurance that our board is well respected by our regional audit team, industry partners, and by the Ministry of Education. And while no one can promise that we will never be hit by a significant attack, you should know that we are well positioned and ever vigilant. With that, Francis and I are grateful for your time and any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for your presentation. questions or comments? Trustee Moore.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Superintendent, I was looking at the cybersecurity framework, and is this the one that the ministry is using as well? Or because it's a well thought of framework from the American Institute, right? It's a very well thought of framework. And so is this the one the ministry is using?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll pass this one on to Francis as well. I believe it is, because the slide where I mentioned the ministry's 24/7 support was a ministry slide. And if you notice the bottom layer, it is the NIST framework. But
Okay.
I would ask Francis to add to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Trustee Moore's question, the ministry has a collection of Government of Ontario IT services policy and guidelines. They leverage, I believe it's more than an NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The ministry actually have an INIT group that lead us in the way of the other boards, that follow the NIST model to develop every phase of the protection. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Trustee Moore.
You did. May I ask a supplementary, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
The next slide, I was curious because I would have thought that, and again, Mr. Liu, I don't know, so I'm asking, I would have thought that the tier 2 that's on the slide would have been the tier 1, because that would have been the basic that everybody had. And the only real difference would be our tier 2, what our board does. Is there a reason that the ministry just puts itself at tier 2 rather than tier 1?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and again, the answer to Ms. Moore, to Trustee Moore. The tier 2 is more of a detect and respond basis that doesn't get leverage, day in and day out. Should an incident happen, the detection will help boards to actually work on the problem. And again, as Mr. Edward mentioned, not all boards have the resources to put a hub together to support other boards as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trustee Coburn?
Yeah, not a question, just a couple of comments. One, first, the audit committee received a report from Francis and Superintendent Edwards that was, I would say, more extensive. As Jeff mentioned, it's been identified by our internal auditors as one of the higher priorities with regards to not only our board, but all boards. And the other thing, just a comment, as a representative on the OSB board, this is probably the fastest growing line of insurance at OSB. And to confirm Superintendent Edwards, there's been a number of school boards have been hit. And if you follow the news, you saw one of our local hospitals was hit recently as well. So you can never be too prepared, and you can never be too certain that this isn't going to happen. So I think the plan we have is rigorous, and I'm sure we'll continue to evolve it.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments? Trustee Curry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Superintendent Edwards. I would imagine that one of the key things is ongoing professional development for staff to make them aware of the security challenges, because I would imagine our whole system is only as strong as every link in it. So what are we doing to on an ongoing basis for PD staff development in this regard?
Through you, Mr. Chair, thank you very much for the question, and you're quite right. The human behavior is one of our most important security features. So between things that we do for them, like send out patches and push our patches out to the system, those are very important. But you're right, our Privacy and Information Committee will often put in different professional development. We've done fake phishing scams, for instance, to see how many staff would click on something that could be dangerous, and then we identify those staff and say, just so you know, you probably shouldn't have clicked on that, because then we identify with them that it is important that we do cybersecurity. We ask that they don't just go to any site, that they are very careful, there is ongoing professional development that we do at various PD days, various staff meetings. It's a constant thing, and the Privacy and Information Management Committee has many meetings a year where they talk about what is the next greatest risk and what should we do to staff to help them with their human behaviors to make sure they stay clear.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there any other questions or comments? Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation. Can I have a mover for the motion, please? Sorry, Trustee Warren. Are you moving the motion or do you have a question? Moving the motion? Moved by Trustee Warren, second by Trustee Coburn. That the memorandum from the Superintendent of Learning Technologies dated October 18th entitled Cyber Protection Update be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 4, memo from the Director of Education, board meeting scheduled for December 2021. Director D'Amico.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll note that your bylaws indicate that the AGM takes place on the first Tuesday of the month, and then the third Tuesday of December would be the next board meeting. This year, that falls on December 7th for the AGM. However, the third Tuesday of the month for your board meeting would be on December 21st, which is during the scheduled holidays for this year. So we are recommending that you consider moving that from the 21st to the 14th. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the trustees may have about that calendar.
Questions or comments? Trustee Whitted?
Move the motion.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Trustee McEwen, second. That the memorandum from the Director of Education dated October 21st, 2021, entitled Board Meeting Schedule for December 2021 be received, and the Board of Trustees approves the date changed of December 21st, 2021 board meeting to December 14th, 2021. All in favor? Opposed? Can I get someone to move the confirmation of the action report, please? Trustee Coburn, seconded by Trustee Simpson. That the action report covering the period of October 12th, 2021 be received. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. No inquiries. Administrative announcements. Director D'Amico.
No announcements today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. We're to the belittling hour. Can I have a mover to adjourn, please? Moved by Trustee Lawrence, seconded by Trustee Coburn. That the regular board meeting of October 26, 2021 be adjourned at 8:23 p.m. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll get an answer shortly from Associate Director Donahue.